Limited.
Hi everyone, welcome to today's webinar. I think we're just going to give it a couple minutes just to let a few more people come in. So we'll just leave it a second. Just while we're waiting for that, I'll just give them a quick introduction to myself. So I'm Harry. I'm a business development executive here at JSP, and I work in the southeast of England alongside helping out some of our nationals. I am Fit accredited. So I've gone through the course around RPE, face fit testing as a whole. So hopefully this webinar gives you a bit of knowledge on the background to this all. I think something that we are really trying to achieve with these webinars is just increasing the kind of confidence that people have speaking about these subjects, RPE, beards as a whole, or beards with RPE as a whole, and kind of are able to go out and discuss it with their teams, or using that information personally to make sure that they are actually using and selecting the correct RPE for themselves or their team. Because too often do we see that in the workplace, while people are making that effort to protect themselves, they are not actually protecting themselves with the right things. They're kind of wearing these masks, or they have these masks that aren't as effective as they probably actually should be. Okay, so I think we'll get started. So yeah, we're just focusing today on whether you can have a beard while using RPE. We'll try and keep this as kind of focused as possible, while also giving a bit of background into RPE as a whole, and face fitting and other topics around that. See, we're going to do sort of questions at the end, so kind of go through the sort of 15 to 20 minute presentation, and if anyone had any questions at the end, and of course if there was any further questions after this webinar, you're very welcome to email into either myself or the team, and we'll put these details in later on in the presentation. So I just wanted to start this off by kind of giving a quick overview into RPE as a whole. So RPE, or respiratory protective equipment, is designed to protect the wearer from breathing in harmful substances within a given kind of contaminated area or hazard zone. Now, I think something that is important to remember is that RPE is actually the last point of call and not the first, and that other control measures should be being applied beforehand. RPE should then be considered, when this is either not possible to apply these methods, or they're not actually providing sufficient amounts of protection or reducing the hazard by enough, and therefore we need these masks. Okay, these could be things like external extraction, water suppression, or there are other types of kind of elimination or substitution for these hazards. Okay, so I think to answer this question, we really need to understand what the different types of face pieces are. So within RPE, and the two that we're really focusing on today are tight fitting and loose fitting face pieces. So tight fitting face pieces rely on having a good seal to the wearer's face, where loose fitting face pieces rely on enough clean air being provided to kind of the face area to ensure that you are breathing in the filtered air, but also to push out any harmful contaminants from within. And it is essential that the air you're breathing in is passing through the filters. Air will pass through that sort of point of least resistance, and therefore if there are any gaps in your tight fitting, or you're not getting the correct airflow in your loose fitting, you are at risk of the contaminants from leaking in. Now, there are a range of challenges in kind of the selecting of the correct RPE, and beards are certainly one of these challenges that fall into this and kind of create challenges across all of these regions. Obviously, religiously, some religions you can't shave off your beard, and this needs to be taken into consideration. Is a different type of RPE kind of we should push towards, or should we be moving them away from that kind of work as a whole and trying to put them elsewhere? And this also, is similar to personal. I think it's fair to say that at the minute beards are in trend. People don't want to shave off their beard, and therefore this is posing a challenge, because it's that balance between making sure that people are being correctly protected at work, and also at the same time that we're not kind of infringing on people's personal preferences. Obviously, on a health, safety, and to be honest, moral level, it's important that we are providing the correct RPE, whether it's for yourselves or your team. But also, something within health and safety to consider is that RPE might not, outside of a beard, it may simply not work for someone. For example, on a tight respirator that's powered by your lungs, someone with, breathing problems or asthma or the like may struggle to breathe in these masks, really draw the air in, and therefore it may not be suitable for them, and other options need to be looked at. Of course, there are also costs associated with face fitting and RPE as a whole. Obviously, on the face fitting side, the costs kind of come with the time, and there are financial elements to it, and also to an extent supply. When you're face fitted, you're only kind of fitted to that mask. And if you were going to bring in another mask, you'd need to be refitted on that. So if there was a supply issue, you couldn't get your hands on that mask for your team, that team would then need to be face fitted on a different type of mask, where obviously on the powered side, the kind of upfront cost is going to be much higher. However, you could view this as kind of sharing that cost out over a period of time, and just taking that upfront hit. Okay. So why does it actually matter? Why does it matter if people have beards when they're in RPE? Why does wearing this protection matter as a whole? There are 19,000 new cases of breathing or lung problems per year, and this is linked to past work exposure. And I think something that is clear is that this is not going to be felt, tomorrow, next week, next month, even in a year's time. You're going to be feeling this 20, 30 years down the line when you're potentially looking at retiring. And then unfortunately, you get that COPD or cancer diagnosis linked to, your past exposures at work. And I think this chart just on the screen here really demonstrates that latency period. Asbestos and other asbestos-related lung cancers still, 20 to 40% of that pie chart, still quite a majority of it. And asbestos hasn't really been used, 20, 25, even longer, but it's still kind of a big chunk of that pie chart. I think something we're going to see going forward as well is silica taking that chunk. We're really trying to increase awareness in silica, the dangers around it, and really protecting yourself against it. So unfortunately, while asbestos might drop, due to the latency period, other cancers or other diseases related to breathing in these contaminants could be really increasing. Okay. So with RPE, obviously, and to be honest, PPE as a whole, it must be providing adequate protection against the hazard. There's no point wearing these devices if they're not actually providing protection against whatever you're trying to protect against. And these hazards are tiny. As mentioned before, they'll pass through the path of least resistance. A tiny microscopic gap in the mask or the seal where it's not fitted properly may cause a kind of leak. And another challenge to that is that everyone has different heads, types, shapes, sizes, and features, and therefore a mask that may fit someone also may not fit someone else, and therefore that needs to be considered because you may need multiple different mask types depending on the amount of sort of people in the organisation with different face types. And unfortunately, poor fit is a major cause of insufficient RPE, whether it's just not donning them properly or not following manufacturer's instructions. However, beards do massively contribute to this. People wanting to keep their beards, but not wanting to spend money on the powered side, and therefore wearing RPE and not actually protecting themselves. I think the size of this is really shown well in these little graphics here. In both the graphics here, what you see is a strand of hair. Obviously, it's kind of the focal point on this one with the fine beach sand and the silica, and kind of off to the right here on the when you're comparing other particles. And obviously, all these particles will be potentially dangerous or harmful to breathe in potentially low, even in sort of low quantities. And it really shows that the impact that a piece of hair will have. These things will slip through. They are tiny. And inhalable dusts, our body can't kind of keep out with its natural defenses, like nose hair, sneezing, and things like that. So yeah, it just gives that nice visual of how these things could slip through hair and how hair could cause these gaps in the mask that make them not as efficient as they should be working. So face fit testing. Obviously, we talk about beards, the impact they have, masks fitting properly, and everything like that. But maybe wondering how exactly do we kind of ensure that the mask is fitting correctly. So face fit testing for tight fitting RPE ensures the mask is creating an effective seal against the wearer. And this gives confidence that the wearer is receiving the levels of protection that they are expecting and should be hoping for. Okay. This can be performed either qualitatively or quantitatively. There are definitely, positives and negatives to both type. On a qualitative level, which is tested using this kind of hood, blue box that you see, and then also like a compound like Bittrex or saccharin, Bittrex being the thing that you know is under the sink or that you put on your nails to prevent biting when you're younger and leaves quite a nasty taste. So the qualitative method is a taste test that relies on the subject to notify the tester when they have tasted the kind of compound. Obviously, this is subjective and it is cheaper, and I think you can remove some kind of subjectivity in the fact that they are very strong, kind of bad tasting substances, and therefore covering that up and trying to lie through it just to pass the test is quite difficult. Where on a quantitative level, using machines like this port count here, obviously that comes with a higher cost, but what this delivers is a kind of numerical value into how well that mask is actually fitting you. Okay, it'll count the amount of particles inside, for example, and then come out with a fit factor. And what this fit factor kind of shows is, yeah, the seal made with the mask and how much is kind of leaking in to that mask. So what I wanted to give you now is just a quick visual all of that. So what we're going to do, we've got two pumps here. I know it's an interesting one. And each of these pumps is either shaved or got a beard. So you see on this pump, the little toggle is just nice and clear, nothing on it at all. Okay, where my other pump has Velcro on it, which is there to mimic stubble or a beard. I'm going to pump them up and see the effects. And what we should hopefully be seeing is that air is leaking through the pump with the beard, I guess, and is therefore kind of mimicking what would happen if you did have a beard and air or the contaminant leaking through the mask. So if I pump these up now. Just leave them there. And already actually see with this one, how not as much air is going in with each pump, and that's because it is leaking out. And while this is kind of happening, while the air is leaking out, I'm just going to show a quick video of my colleague being put through the port cap machine with different sort of length of beard to see the impact of it. Sorry if it's a bit laggy, hopefully it's not too bad your end. And there you go. So what that shows you is the fit factor given, the I guess the fit of that mask at different lengths of beard. So as you saw, that full length beard, that fit factor was, I believe it was 7, so really low. And then even with that short stubble, the fit factor only being kind of 50, still very much in the red, so still very low. And then finally, completely clean shaven. You saw the impact that shoots up to sort of above 4,000. Showing that kind of fit when you are clean shaven and how much of an impact it does make to be shaven. Okay, and what we can see now is the difference in the air leaking out in the two balloons. Obviously this here, just to prove it, is the balloon with the Velcro and the beard, and this is the clear one. You can see the difference in leakage between the two. Okay, so it shows how the part of the air will leak through when there is a little stubble within the mask as well. Okay, just a nice little visual to hopefully get that point across a little bit. So what actually is clean shaven? Obviously, it's an interesting one to answer as everyone has different rates of growth on their beard. Me, for example, I'd probably take 3 months to grow the same beard as my colleagues can do in 2 days, which is unfortunate. However, it does need to be answered. You know, there does need to be a kind of definition for it, particularly with face fitting and also coming into work. So The HSE defined unshaven hair as being hair that's not shaven within an 8-hour period before starting work. And this needs to be consistent. If you're going to do a face fit test, you're clean shaven and you pass with flying colours, that's great, absolutely perfect. Then in a week's time, if you go into work wearing the exact same mask and theoretically everything's the same, apart from that you've got a little bit of that stubble, then all of a sudden that mask isn't actually fitting properly, with the difference being you haven't shaven within that 8 hours. So it's essential that if you are coming into work, you are going to be wearing those respiratory pieces, face pieces, that you are clean shaven within 8 hours of starting that shift. Okay, so we're just going to look at the two different types of RP in a little bit more depth now. Again, loose, tight fitting and loose fitting, and this is really the answer to this question. This is really where you see whether you can or you can't wear beards alongside these face pieces. So starting with tight fitting, something like our Force 10 mask. You can also see on the screen for, say, our half mask, another half mask, and also our disposable FFP mask. These all fall into tight fitting, and these all work through negative pressure and creating an effective seal against the face. Now, with tight fitting RPE, it's essential that you get face fitted on them, and this is law. This therefore means they're not suitable with beards. As we've seen in the video and with the pump test, the air or the contaminant will be leaking through that mask, therefore making them unsuitable. Now, with these masks, it's also ideal if you're performing a fit check before every use, and that just kind of assesses the fit each time it's worn. Now, this is different from a fit test. A fit test is your original test, which assesses the suitability of that mask to your face type, shape, features, and elsewhere. Where a fit check is something you do each time it's worn, and that kind of makes sure that you've put the mask on properly and it is fitting you on that occasion with the extra confidence you've got being backed up from the fit test you originally done. Something with also with tight fitting RPE is that they can only be worn for an hour before a break is required. And to be honest, after an hour, there's a good chance that you're going to be wanting to take a break from that anyway. You're getting hot or just slightly uncomfortable. Okay, so that's kind of tight fitting RPE. To answer the original question, the answer is no. You cannot wear a beard with this type of RPE. So then, what's the solution? We touched upon points earlier of people or kind of dilemmas. In the religious aspect, people not wanting to shave their beards at all, and also the kind of cost element to it. Can also be mentioned just quickly that you can actually have certain types of beards with this RPE, contrary to kind of the general message. However, what is essential with these beards, they're kept within the seal and they do not break the seal. So obviously you see on the top here, that stubble, that full beard, that goatee, all of them breaking the seal, and therefore all of them not providing that protection as would it be expected. With the bottom, we've got clean shaven, the zapper beard, and the mustache, all within the seal. Ideally, when you do your face fit test, you do have this beard, which will also just confirm that fit for you. And just like clean shaven, if you are going to have these beards within the mask, that you do shave regularly, so they do stay within the seal. If you have that zapper, you let it grow out, it then breaks the seal, you're then not protected. Okay, and this is where it backs up that need for the fit check, the check that you do before you put on the mask, because it will just assess that fit every single time. So now the solution. What can you wear with a beard? And that is loose fitting RPE. Okay, so things like these powered hoods, there's Power Cap Infinity, and others you see on the screen here are Jetstream, and also our Power Cap Active, different types of powered hoods with slightly different kind of features and benefits to them. Okay, so loose fitting RPE works through positive pressure. That feeds a given amount of clean air to the face area, and the pressure delivered is sufficient to push out any contaminants trying to get in through that kind of foam seal at the bottom. Okay, face fitting is not required with these. Okay, there's no need. It's loose fitting, and therefore an effective seal does not need to be made to the face. However, something that is good practice certainly is to be doing an airflow check each time this mask is put on. So the airflow check is just a little gauge you can put on the inside of the mask that when it's turned on will give you a kind of reading, and that just gives you confidence that the motor and the batteries are working properly. It's pushing out the required amount of air to be providing enough kind of clean air to the face area. And another thing with loose fitting RPE is these can be worn as long as the user is comfortable with them. So if they can wear them for a whole shift, they can. If they want to take them off before, they're also welcome to. So this can have other benefits, efficiency potentially. A team might be having to take less breaks and things like that. And yeah, other just benefits like that on the whole. Okay. So just looking a bit into the implication side of things, what actually happens if people aren't wearing these masks, not wearing them properly, wearing the beards, not wearing the right type. So the law requires employers to prevent the control or exposure of employees and other people to hazardous substances at work. This is across RPE and also as a whole. RPE should be adequate for the kind of task and suitable for the person and the environment, and providing kind of effective protection through the correct selection of the type of RPE and the filters, and then also maintaining good practices like your fit check, being shaven, and things like that. Okay. RP should be selected, used, and maintained by trained people. Now, it's important that these people are trained. In the selection part, trained people have a better idea of what they should be looking for, what actually the hazard is, what type of filters they need, and therefore should hopefully be leaving their team more protected, or themselves personally more protected as well. In a use case, if you're trained, you know how to properly put the mask on, you know a bit about the theory and a bit about the why. You may or may not be able to use a beard depending on what type of RPE, and therefore should hopefully lead to kind of better practice and better use of that mask. And in terms of maintenance, if there's damage to the mask and it hasn't been checked properly, if there's just dust inside the mask, you'd be breathing in the hazard directly that you kind of are trying to protect yourself from. So it's important that, yeah, these masks are well maintained. And also you'll get more value for money out of them, they'll last longer, particularly the masks. And yeah, they should keep you protected for a longer period of time. So this is an interesting one, as RP fit testing is a legal requirement. You have to do fit testing. Everyone on the site will need to be fit tested, and this should be done by a competent person. But there is a slight difference between kind of competency and accreditation. I'm accredited. That shows my competency within face fit testing, but it's not something you actually have to do. If you can prove that you understand the theory and the processes behind fit testing, that is okay. And things that you can kind of learn that through things like train the tester courses. So train the tester courses tend to be a kind of more one-day thing rather than a kind of 4-day, 5-day full course. And that should give you the competencies to kind of face fit people within your own organization. Okay, and what you see at the bottom there is just kind of the potential outcomes of not adhering to this, not providing the correct RPE, not enforcing no beard with the tight fitting stuff, getting the wrong filters and that sort of thing. And they leave them at risk of substantial fines. Obviously, the bakery group, the recycling company, and also on a personal level, that director who avoided the sentence but got quite a substantial fine, I'm sure may have been banned as a director as well. Okay, that's kind of everything on this. I hope that answers the question. If you had any further questions about powered air or RP as a whole, and you wanted more information, you're very welcome to email me or our technical team, and that will be put in the chat. But we'll just touch on a few extra bits now. Obviously, this just gives a nice kind of visual, I guess, on the answer to this. So powered, like loose fitting powered air respirators are suitable with beards and stubble, where your tight fitting stuff needs to be clean shaven, and that needs to make sure that it isn't forced. Okay. Something that could help with the selection of this RPE, and take out the guesswork when it comes to the size when you're trying to select that for your team, is you can request a free size guide from your website. They go through the website or follow that QR code now. They look like this, and effectively they will just kind of give you an idea about what sort of size that your team is fitting in. Okay. Train the tester, I touched on this earlier. We do actually run our own course, and this is monthly and free of charge. Okay. This is at our Worsham Mill office and is designed for companies that want to send in 2 of their employees per month to kind of learn about the background, learn about the competencies behind face fitting, to hopefully be then able to test in-house. Okay. These do get quite booked up, so try and get on this and get yourself booked in as much as possible. Upcoming webinars, again, we're trying to increase the confidence of people talking about these subjects. So towards the end of August, we'll have a webinar focusing on whether you can wear bunk caps instead of safety helmets. A bit about the background behind the standards and why this may or may not be possible. And then towards the back end of September, really cutting through the jargon, trying to go more in depth about the real in-depth pieces on respiratory protection, so you are more confident when you go into the workplace. I would like to, at this point, invite any questions that anyone may have. I can already see one in there. How often should you change filters? So this is an interesting question to answer, as it can really have an impact on, or what impacts this is kind of the hazard you're working in, and kind of the time you're in that as well. We recommend as best practice that filters are changed every 28 days, an absolute maximum, once the kind of packet's been opened. And the reason we have this is, the real killer of filters is moisture. There's moisture in the air, so once it's opened up, there could be moisture coming into the filters and creating a bit of an environment in there, which you don't really know what's in. So yeah, 28 days is best practice. However, there are tells of when a filter is broken. It could be way less, depending on, if you're in an incredibly dusty area, kind of 4 hours a day. Yeah, there's a good chance you may need to change those filters in a few days or even a week. Okay, hope that answers that one. Loose fitting wise as well. Again, we recommend that kind of 28 days of best practice. However, loose fitting devices, these turbo hoods, have alarm systems. So, for example, a blue light will flash on this power cap infinity here, which will then notify you that your filters are kind of filling up and you need to get out of that hazard zone and get them changed. We're not to receive this face fit and grow a beard to wear their mask. So that we'd need to ask them to shave. Ideally, if they've been face fitted to be wearing that mask, they'll be face fitted to wear that mask without a beard. So just because they've been face fitted with the mask doesn't mean they can then grow it, and not kind of have that beard on site. And that's where that fit check comes in. I think if you had a fit check and you and you kind of perform that fit check with that beard, it wouldn't really work, and therefore you're not really receiving that level of protection that you're expecting. Scroll down a little bit. You supply masks without rubber. That is one. No, so we do have the one type of mask. The seal is thermoplastic rubber. But yeah, no, unfortunately, that is the only mask we have. Are there any more questions? Scroll down a little bit. Will you be sending out the presentation slides? So this, I believe, will be put on YouTube after. So you'll be able to rewatch this and have a look. Paul's just given, my colleague has been just given a bit more context to that question there. Okay, if there's no more questions, we can look. Oh, do you do toolbox talks? Toolbox talks, I think what would be best for that is to email into either our technical team or the UK sales inbox. And with that, we can look to arrange potentially, a toolbox talk. You can have a little chat about that and see if we can get something arranged. So it's something we could certainly look at if you wanted to email into one of our teams. We can filter that through and hopefully look to set something up. What solutions Persians to this one's a tough one to answer, because if they're allergic and can't get face fitted on any mask, it just simply may be that there isn't really a solution to the kind of tight fitting side. Obviously, as mentioned before, RPE should actually be kind of the bottom control, I guess, in your hierarchy. So if there were other ways to reduce the hazard, being outside, external extraction, water suppression, or anything like that, then that could be a good solution as well. Do you need to be fit tested for each different tight fitting mask? Yes, you do. So, for example, if you were to be fit tested on a disposable mask like one here, and you're getting on with it, but you prefer something different, then I want a more kind of reusable, longer term. You can go for something like this, okay? But what that means is that you move on, you'll need to be then re-face fitted on that mask, because while that mask fits you, that mask may not fit you, okay? So yeah, you do need to be fit tested for every different mask that you are wearing, tight fitting mask that you're wearing. Well, is there any more at this time at all? Good question, Scott. When up to see. Oh, sorry, I thought I answered that one. Yeah, no. In essence, that's a no. That essentially that mask that they will need to shave. They've got their certification. They got that certification when they're clean shaven, and therefore, if they're not shaven later down the line, it won't actually fit properly. So yeah, even though they got their original face fit certification, you need to make sure that 8 hours before the start of your shift, you are shaving yourselves. Okay, that's all. That's for all tight fitting masks. Obviously, that can be avoided through a loose fitting one, such as an Infinity. Yeah, I believe that looks like it's it. That's it, I think. So we'll wrap up there. Thank you everyone for coming, and I hope you got something out of this. A bit of knowledge and a bit of confidence to be speaking about this, and awareness to be selecting that RPE for either yourselves or your team. As mentioned before, please join us for the next one. The next webinar towards the back end of September. We'll be hopefully answering more of your questions, taking a deeper dive into helmets and bump caps, and yeah, increasing that confidence in the marketplace. Sort speaking about this. Oh, one more. And therefore, can the operatives grow a beard after fit test? And therefore, in the sense of no, just because they've got their fit test certificate, we kind of need to be, pushing good practice throughout. So yeah, obviously, if he's then refusing to wear the mask, that is one of the challenges we touched upon earlier, and it's something that we need to look at other options for, whether that is other ways of maintaining the hazard, moving on to powered air, or simply moving them away from that zone and giving other work where they don't, where they wouldn't be experiencing that hazard. But yeah, no, they can't grow a beard after a fit test. They need to be clean shaven every single time they put one of these tight fitting masks on. Okay. Okay, yeah, thank you everyone. Of course, look, if there's any further questions, please feel free to email it to our technical team. It's in the chat, and also myself, if there was any interest in our power cap, other units, then yeah, please feel free to email in. And thank you all for joining again.